political arena, the League of Women Voters has been a group that makes things happen. And so I want you all to give yourself a round of applause because I believe that's critically important. Not like you do. But literally, when I started running for treasurer at the beginning of 2006, the League of Women Voters was very active getting people registered to vote. They were very active in having candidate forums and things like that. And I believe that's critical for our democracy. I personally believe that people who are in elected office should be public servants and understand that they work for you. And that it is not about them. It is not about them telling you that they are smarter than you and they know what's best for you and how to live your life. So what I try to do is I try to listen to the people of this community. And you've heard a lot of things about what we're doing in the community in terms of our task force groups and things like that. That came from listening to the people of this community. It wasn't me saying, oh, I think we need this task force or we need that task force. It was literally listening to the people of this community. One other person in this room who has that philosophy is my good friend, Senator Margaret Juarez, who is someone that I endorsed and support in her role as a state senator. So I wanted to recognize her. But I am an open book, so I'll answer any question that you all have. So let's get started because we got 3,000 questions.
I promise it's not 3,000 questions. But if we run out, we may, these were all sent in.
Okay.
Hopefully most of it came from this audience, but if not, we may give you guys a few minutes at the end to see if there's anything that you particularly want to ask. So to start off with, what has surprised you the most since becoming mayor?
The funny thing is, I knew there would be excitement about me being mayor. I had no idea that it would be people this excited all over the city. I would say Aaron can attest to this and probably Viv as well, but in the first 11 months now, we're probably approaching around 1,000 events or meetings. There were days when I did 12, 13 different meetings and events and things like that because people wanted to meet with me. They wanted to talk to me. The great thing about that is I learned an awful lot because I really, truly try to listen. And so I'm able to pull things together and get people on the same page. Here's a funny thing about being mayor. If I say I want to meet with someone, they always come. So then I get to talk to all of the people that are trying to do great things in the city and then be able to pull people together and we get things done. I'll give you a quick example. We are about to build a soccer stadium in downtown Omaha, and we will have a men's soccer pro team, but we will also ultimately get a women's soccer pro team. We were able to get that done in about 7 months. And then it was just a matter of the approval process, maybe even less than that. But they had been working on that since 2020. I'm able to pull people together, build consensus, and get it done. So that's probably been the most fun, the excitement, and then being able to talk to people and getting things done.
Well, we were going to ask you what takes up most of your time, but obviously it's meetings. So. Okay.
Meetings and events.
Meeting events. So what would you say to young people who feel kind of disconnected or unheard, kind of hopeless, some of them, to get them to, become part of the vision that you see for Omaha?
Sure. The first thing I always say to young people is stay in Omaha. We want you here. Now, when I say that, I also want you to understand, I know there are cities that people think are more glamorous and more exciting, more fun, all of that. I want young people to be engaged in this community and help me build the city of their dreams right here in Omaha, Nebraska. And I'll share some ways that we're doing that no other mayor has ever done. One, we are really having a true youth council. We are going to take a junior in high school from every high school in Douglas County. And we're going to take a senior from every high school in Douglas County, so that we can meet with them. I can hear what their thoughts are. They can hear what my thoughts are. Then they can take that back to every student in their school. So instead of just handpicking, 5 or 6 high school kids because of who they might be related to or who I might know, we're literally going to have over 50 high school students giving us advice. Also with the young professionals group, instead of taking a handful of young professionals that I know, what we are trying to do is build a young professionals group where we take the leaders of leaders. So the vice presidents and the presidents of those young professionals groups, so then they can talk to me, tell me what their thoughts are, they can hear what my thoughts are, but then they can take that back to the other members of their team that they're leading and get their input and their thoughts as well. So we're being very intentional about listening. We're also working very closely with the superintendents of all the high schools, trying to make sure they are doing some of the things that we know will help young people be successful. So I'm really pushing dual enrollment. I will tell you all that Millard does an amazing job. They probably had 190 young people that graduated from high school after they graduated with their associate degree. That was unheard of when most of us were in high school. The Omaha Public Schools is doing a good job with that as well, and they're going to continue to get better in their partnership with Metropolitan Community College. I had a meeting yesterday with the library director. She had not met the superintendents. So today, my administrative person reached out to every superintendent so that the library director, myself and my chief of staff, Tom Warren, and also the director of the Library Foundation could meet with the superintendents to be able to build partnerships. Because I believe the more we invest in our young people at an early age, the more likely they are to stay. Because people want to feel valued, they want to feel appreciated, and they want to know that they have a place in this community. So we're doing things very intentionally to invest in them. And guess what? It doesn't cost any extra money. It's really just about being intentional and building those partnerships.
So in your opinion, what's the most pressing issue facing Omaha and what's your plan to deal with it?
There are a lot of pressing issues. The couple that I would say are the most important, because to me, they're part of the American dream. One is economic development. And I talked about this during the campaign, and I don't know if everybody got it, so I'll explain it to you. Omaha has not grown high-paying jobs as fast as some of the smaller communities around us. Des Moines, Iowa, Sioux Falls, those cities have grown high-paying jobs faster than Omaha. What that means is it's hard to keep young people here if they don't have high-paying jobs. It's hard to build the tax base that we need and not just have to continue to rely more and more on property tax if we don't have high-paying jobs. Omaha was way behind. So one of the things I am is very, very intentional. So I had a discussion during the campaign with one of the business leaders, and he was the one that shared that information with me. I think I shocked him when I said, okay, Mike, I'm all in. And I don't think he knew what that meant. But what it meant was I was going to do everything I could to build a coalition to get a tax incentive passed for high-paying jobs. I'll give you one example of what that means. 1165 is the bill. That means Union Pacific Railroad will stay in Omaha. That also means that they will probably bring 2,000 high-paying jobs to Omaha from Atlanta when they merge with Norfolk Southern. We hadn't grown 2,000 high-paying jobs in a year, probably in the last decade and a half. Those 2,000 jobs will be more income tax for the state, more sales tax when they buy things, a whole lot of other secondary jobs as well as people provide service for them. That's a huge economic boost to the city of Omaha. I was working on that from the day I was elected, even before I was sworn in, because that was a priority. So one of the things I do is I look at what the priorities are and I get to work. Another one that I think is critically important is affordable housing. Part of the reason economic development is important is obviously the more money you make, the more affordable housing is. So those two things really kind of work together. But within my first couple months, and I'll share how it came about, we made the single largest investment that the city of Omaha has ever made in affordable housing with $40 million going to affordable housing. Now that money will turn over 3 or 4 times, and that will have the equivalent impact of about 120 to 160 million dollars. Because I listened, I found that out within my first 5 minutes of having a conversation with Steve Jensen as I was talking to all of the staff about wanting to stay. I interviewed him, talked to him about the streetcar, and we talked about the $100 million that ultimately will be available. So we're not done. There will be another $60 million that will go toward affordable housing, and it will turn over as well and be anywhere from 180 million to 240 million. But within 5 minutes, he told me about it. But here's what he told me. He said that money will start to be available in about 2032 as receipts come in from the TIF development. That was 2025. How many of you think 2032 was soon enough? I lead with a sense of urgency, and I said, that's not soon enough. We've got to figure it out. And so now we have $40 million that Front Porch is managing for us to really start focusing on affordable housing. Then we have one thing I want to make sure people understand. There's some talk about taking and making those developers who want to get TIF, tax increment financing, make it mandatory that they have affordable housing. Most of the plans I see like that, first of all, they have unintended consequences. But the limit is generally about 10 to 15%. In Omaha last year, of the projects we did involving housing, 23% of that was affordable housing. So I don't listen to the rhetoric and I don't spread a bunch of philosophical stuff. I like to see results and get stuff done. Now, we'll grow even more with this $40 million. But 23% in 2025 was affordable housing. So I just believe in getting things done.
Let me ask a couple of follow-up questions to that, okay? So when you say affordable housing, what is the parameter for affordable housing you're talking about?
See, what people don't understand about affordable is that they think it's a certain price point. It's not. It's really a percentage of a person's income. So what you want to do is, if you raise people's incomes, then housing becomes more affordable, but it's 31% for affordable. If you can purchase a home, rent an apartment or whatever for less than 31% of your income, that's considered affordable.
What do you do with people though who don't have, they may not be working, they may be underemployed, people who might have been homeless at one point? How do you afford the kind of housing that they can be moved into?
The problem with that is people think it's as simple as the government saying this is going to happen. It's really got to be about a partnership with the state, a partnership with the federal government to help make those things happen, as well as the philanthropic community. Because we can't just take tax dollars from people that are working every day to say, okay, we're going to spend that for affordable housing. So we have to figure out a way to do it that doesn't take tax dollars per se. And so with the streetcar funding, that is not your tax dollars. That is the income that is generated from the additional development. So that's a better way to do it, in my opinion, than saying we're going to take tax dollars to do it. One of the things that we're trying to push, however, is the federal government developing a housing plan where they partner with cities and states to help us with infrastructure and other things like that to make it less expensive.
Have you talked with our congressional delegation about
Yeah.
that? And what kind of response do they get? Because we hear from Washington that they want to cut everything.
Yeah, I will say this, there are champions for affordable housing. Mike Flood is one of them. So we've had some good conversations. And then there's another effort that I'm leading as mayor. I'm the first mayor to sign on to this, but we are looking to get an infrastructure bank. And if we can get an infrastructure bank that allows cities and states to be able to get money at a very low cost, then you can take the infrastructure that's needed for housing and build that with that infrastructure bank. And then that makes housing cheaper because you don't have to have a developer or someone else paying for the streets and the sewers and all of the other things that go into housing before you ever build a house. So I'm looking at trying to be creative. So that's what I believe is going to be most successful long-term. When it comes to people who are homeless, one of the things we are working with is a philanthropic organization that is looking to invest in permanent supportive housing for people who are homeless so that we can help them get the services they need and get them back on track.
And we also had someone who asked about what happened at Kellogg's, with Kellogg shutting down.
Sure.
Now, those aren't necessarily high-paying jobs, they're more working-class jobs, but after what happened out in Lexington, and, the money that was involved in getting UP, the tax breaks that had to be given to get UP to stay here and not go to Georgia. How do you handle trying to compete with these other states and other cities? It's almost a battle to the bottom to try to get them to stay or to move here.
I would disagree in terms of our approach. a lot of approaches, they give incentives upfront. What we have done with this bill is to create the incentives, but you have to create the jobs and maintain the jobs. So that's a better way of doing it, where you actually have to create the high-paying jobs, bring those jobs here, create them, and then maintain them, and then a number of years after you've done that, then you get the tax incentive. So I think that's a better way of doing it. I want everybody to understand also that Kellogg's was closing before I became mayor. I have tried to reach out to them several times. And I had a meeting set up within my first few weeks in office, and then they canceled it, and then they have not been responsive. So everything I do when it comes to that is about keeping jobs here first, keeping people here, looking at the opportunity to allow them to expand, and then trying to recruit new people and new jobs to the city.
Talk to us about transportation. We
Sure.
had, and especially some of the younger people were asking about transportation, and we understand obviously that the streetcar is coming. We're hoping sooner rather than later, but I think a lot of people look at the buses. They'll be driving through town and they'll see a bus drive by, and there aren't a lot of people on the bus. So the question is, how do you use transportation, bus transportation, and tie it all together to try to make it a movement in Omaha?
Sure. So let me give you guys a really long answer. Number one, we look at the orbit buses and we think, oh, people must not be using them. But the reality is Metro Transit has millions of riders. The reason those buses look empty sometimes, because I ask questions too. When I met with Lauren, the executive director, they actually run more frequently. And so instead of running like maybe every 30 minutes, they're running every 10 or 15 minutes. So it's going to look sometimes like there's not as many people riding them because they're coming so frequently. But they, gosh, I wish I could remember the number, but I think it was around 4 million passengers last year. We also have the best bike share program in the United States of America. We have a bike share program that is free to anyone in the metro area. Omaha, Council Bluffs, Bellevue, Papillion, La Vista, Elkhorn, Millard, all over the place, a bike share program that is free for the first hour. So that is a means of transportation. The streetcar, even though people think that is transportation, it really isn't necessarily designed to be transportation. It is an economic development tool. So far, because of the streetcar planning and the infrastructure work that is being done, the streetcar has generated about $1.5 billion of investment. That will be really significant when all of the TIF and all of that is done in terms of the city's property tax base and the property tax base for the Omaha Public Schools. In 15 years, that is projected to be around $3 to $5 billion. In 30 years, that's about $7 billion. And that's just if we just did the streetcar the way it's laid out today and did nothing else. My goal is to take the streetcar into North Omaha and South Omaha as well, so that we have economic development in those communities associated with the streetcar. Then I think we've got some other opportunities with the streetcar being able to take people to attractions and get people from the airport to the hotels and all of those things. That will then allow us to have even more economic development, more people visiting Omaha, and more people spending time in Omaha. And we've got some other things that we're looking to do to make Omaha's downtown and the area around the convention center as we expand that to really make Omaha a tourist destination. So it will be great opportunity, but that's what the streetcar really is about. It's not about transportation. It's about economic development. And then there's an affordable housing component as well as bike trail component that will be paid for from the proceeds.
So let's talk a little about the budget process.
Sure.
Because you're just about to start, presenting some of that.
Sure.
And I guess the real question is how do you meet the needs of the community without raising property taxes? And also, we had a question, what was the most underfunded department in the city? And how are you gonna address that discrepancy?
Thank you for asking that question. Man, you are asking questions that I'm already doing stuff on.
Good.
So, one of the things that I believe is that the city, all of the taxing entities in Nebraska are too dependent on property taxes. Part of that is because we haven't done enough economic development. So that's why the economic development around the streetcar is critically important. Also, the effort to get high-paying jobs is critically important as well. Because if you get those high-paying jobs, you increase your ability. Did I turn this off? No. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything says you wanna switch here. Let's switch and
Okay.
see if I can figure out what's going on.
Okay, you get high-paying jobs, that also creates additional revenue for the city and for the state. So we've got to increase our ways of funding government. That's number one. Number two, we have to be creative in looking at our budgeting process to make sure that we aren't raising the levy and things like that. And I've had a lot of discussions here in the last few days about the number one underfunded department in city government. Can anybody guess what it might be?
Parks.
Roads.
Roads is a good guess, but somebody said parks, and you're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
We had a master plan study that was started before I became mayor. And myself and the chief of staff, Tom Warren, were talking about it, and we guessed that parks was underfunded by about $5 million per year. We were absolutely right. One of the things I do is I build partnerships. So this year, the philanthropic community is going to give the city of Omaha $5 million. So parks is funded fully this year. Next year, for 2027, we are going to fund parks at an additional $5 million without raising your levies. And the philanthropic community is going to donate $5 million again. And as long as we put the $5 million in every year, they're going to continue to put their $5 million in. So not only were we underfunded $5 million, and I looked at it and said that wasn't acceptable, we came up with a better plan than just saying, let's fund it with the $5 million, and we're actually going to have $10 million. And that is not going to stop some of the other great things that are happening, like investments, like Miller Park Trust, Lake Cunningham Trust. If you look at those things, let me tell you all, first of all, there was controversy about selling parks or something. There are state statutes, there are Supreme Court decisions that says once parkland, always parkland, you cannot sell parkland. So please understand, we are not selling our parks. What we are doing is partnering with people who care about this community. So Miller Park, for instance, is going to get $8 million over a 10-year period. I was just at a groundbreaking for Lake Cunningham. They are going to invest $20 million more into that area. Both of those will still be public parks. They will get actually more use because of the partnerships they have with the nonprofit organizations in our community who actually take kids out to the parks. And in Miller Park's case, they have Nelson Mandela School right across the street. So that's why they wanted to invest in Miller Park, because they want their investment in the kids at Nelson Mandela to continue to grow and thrive by investing in that park. That then allows us also, in addition to the money they're investing in parks, that allows us then as a city to take some of our resources and spread them to the other parks. How many of you think that's good business?
Yeah. Okay, so to follow up, two questions to follow up on the whole park issue. One is we had a question come in asking about, are there specific plans for any parks in West Omaha? And then the other question goes back to Tranquility Park, where we did not get the tax money from the state. Mm-hmm. And how are we going to deal with that in order to keep that development going?
We're going to get it done. So Tranquility is a park in West Omaha, right? We have already figured out, and we knew before, just like we did with the soccer stadium, if we didn't get it in terms of the turnback tax, what the plan would be moving forward. So we know in 5 years, we're going to have $1.5 million to be able to pay each year for Tranquility. We also are going to get philanthropic support to meet the delta to make sure that we can do at least 12 soccer fields. I'm going to have a meeting with them very soon, and I'm going to point out that we're making our commitment of the $5 million, and I'm going to try to get them to meet the delta so we get 16 fields, because then that makes us a national level soccer complex. How many of you have kids, grandkids, or some relatives that go to other cities for soccer tournaments? We can at least have some of those here.
How do you deal with the development around it, the hotel that was going to benefit from that turnback tax?
That will be up to the developer to figure out if they can do that. That doesn't stop us. It just means they may not be able to do everything they want to do, or they may have to find a different way to do it. We aren't going to be able to provide them any more support than we were going to already do with TIF and some of those hotel tax turnback that we actually just created 4 or 5 months ago for a hotel. So we're going to get our project done. The $10 million that we are going to have for parks is going to impact every park in the city of Omaha. I don't look at parks in South Omaha or North Omaha or other places and say, oh, we've got to do an investment there. I look at doing investments in all of the parks. And I'll give you all this little nugget. Tranquility was absolutely dead. The philanthropic community said we are not investing in any parks west of 72nd Street. I don't take those kind of answers and say, okay. I try to be persuasive, and you all tell me if you agree with this logic. I told them it was more accessible for kids all over this city to drive to Tranquility than to drive to Kansas City. Or to drive to Des Moines, and then have to take the whole family and pay for meals and gas and hotel and everything else. They listened, they said, okay, that makes sense, we'll go ahead and do it. But that's the difference between me and maybe others. I look at, let's get to yes, let's figure it out.
Good argument. Okay, let's talk about the homeless pilot project.
Sure.
Threshold's been very successful with that. The pilot project seems to be working well. Where do things stand now? Where do things go? And will there be a budget line for Threshold in the new budget? Because they don't actually, they get money from the philanthropic community, but they don't get money necessarily from the city as a budget.
I can't tell you that there'll be a budget lock. I can tell you that we are continuing that effort. I can also tell you that we are looking at ways to add staff on the city side so we have more ability to get services to the homeless. We also, as I mentioned earlier, are working with one of the nonprofits to take what really needs to be done, and that's permanent supportive housing for those who are homeless, so that you then have the opportunity to provide them with the services they need. Imagine trying to give people services when they're living in encampments and they're moving every couple days or once a month or a week or whatever. So by getting supportive housing, if they need treatment for a drug addiction, alcohol addiction, mental health issues, help with finding employment, the ability to have resources to be able to just have some of the basic things we have, we'll be able to provide that with this permanent housing. So it's really taking and making sure, forgive me for saying this, making sure we weren't as cruel to people as some of the people were at the national level, where they were looking at criminalizing homelessness. Now, that may seem like an easy fix to some people, but let me tell you two things that keep people from having permanent housing. One is if they've been arrested. If you have a criminal record, it is much more difficult to get housing. The second thing that happens is if you put them in jail, now how are they going to get the services they need? So it was not the answer. It may have made some people feel good. I don't think it made very many people feel good in Omaha. I was very proud of the fact that I think like 77 people testified against it, and only 5 people testified in favor. I was just down the street at Child Saving Institute earlier today. I was on their board for a total of about 9 years, and there was a homeless encampment right on Saddle Creek and Dodge. And they were very complimentary of the fact that they called us about the homeless encampment, and we got it moved. We took and tried to get those people services, but I try to balance everything I do. So there's a balance between being kind and concerned and looking out for the homeless, as well as every one of the people in this city who might have a homeless encampment in their neighborhood or by their business or whatever. So we have to balance that. So that's what we're doing right now, is trying to balance that while always offering people the services they need.
So on the services area, Omaha got money from the opioid settlement, correct?
Yes.
So how much should we get? What are we doing with it? And are you gonna be able to use some of that for treatment?
What I am trying to do is utilize that for the hiring of staff for addressing homelessness. I've got to make sure that we can tie it to the opioids in order to be able to do that. Because it's really supposed to be about people who are addicted to opioids. Not everyone that's homeless is, obviously, but I'm trying to see how we can make that tie. So we make sure as we spend money potentially on these positions, we don't have someone come in, do an audit and say, oh, you shouldn't have spent the money on that. But that's one of my goals, is to utilize it specifically to address homelessness. And then there's some other things that the fire and police departments are doing so that they can provide services to people. For instance, Narcan. When you utilize that, that's expensive. But if we can pay for that with that settlement, then that's money we don't have to spend from our city budget and saves lives.
So all the people in this room are people who are active and involved in their community. What is it that we can be doing to help Omaha become a better city? And are there positions that are available that you're looking for volunteers? What kind of, how do we get more involved in the future of our city?
Sure. The first thing I would tell you all is always remember, truly remember, we really are one Omaha. There are a lot of people who want to divide people in this country right now, and even in this city. Maybe by where you live, maybe if you're a man versus a woman, maybe based on race, all of those type of things. I want us to be an oasis in the midst of all of the chaos and all of the ugliness that we see in this country. Omaha is better than that. So as an example, last night, I put out a statement about what happened in San Diego to encourage people to make sure that we understand that we have to take care of everybody in our community. Some people, of course, will always take anything you say in a negative light. And they said, well, what about this group or that group? If you read it closely, it talks about the fact that we are responsible for all of our neighbors. And we want to create a safe, inclusive city for all of our community. So I want you to take that to heart. The second thing that you all may have heard about is 2026 is the year of the neighbor. Now, one of the things I don't do is I don't do a lot of negative stuff, and you're not going to hear me bad mouthing a whole bunch of people and all of that kind of stuff. I have some very strong opinions that you will not hear. But what I will do is I will counteract that very intentionally with the things I do as mayor. And so you've heard me say, if not, you'll hear me say right now, that my goal is to be the most inclusive mayor that this city has ever seen. And I want to make Omaha the most inclusive city in the United States. So if you all buy into that, we are one Omaha and we want to be inclusive. What that means is not the traditional negative things that people want to try to say over on one political side of the aisle. What it really means is that we create an environment where everyone feels valued, everyone feels welcomed, everyone feels like they belong. Everyone has a place in this community. I think that's critically important. If you ask our young people, one of the things that drives them away sometimes is some of the things that happen down in the legislature, where they're trying to police bathrooms and all of those type of things. I'll tell you, I found a solution though when I was in France. Just make unisex bathrooms and everybody goes into an open bathroom and you put the lock on the door. But I think that's the answer to the bathroom. I mean, I think we've got bigger issues in the grass than that. So I want to create an environment where we, in spite of some of the stuff that happens down there, we are looking out for each other. I think that's critically important. So in the year of the neighbor, give you guys a tutorial if you haven't heard of it. The most important thing, number one, in January, if you haven't done it yet, you can do it now. We want every person in this community to think about how they can be a better human being, how they can be a kinder human being, how they can be more intentional about making space for other people and being inclusive. Number one, February, we wanted you to actually look at how you can be a better family member. Now, I'm not trying to tell you what a family looks like some people. Your family looks like whatever your family is. But I want you to be a better family member, because I truly believe that strong families lead to strong communities. Strong communities lead to a strong, amazing city. So that's number two. Number three, we want you to be a good neighbor on your street. The example, if you see your neighbor's trash can got blown down the street, don't just look at it and say, wow. Go get their trash can and bring it up and put it next to their garage. They will feel absolutely amazing. I know, because my neighbors have done that for me, and I've done that for them. So those little simple things like that. Be a good neighbor on your street. In April, we wanted you to be a good neighbor in your neighborhood. I don't know how many of you know this, and you guys all probably know it because of your engagement in the city. But Omaha really is a city of communities. Benson, Florence, South Omaha, Millard, Elkhorn, those were all cities that now make up the city of Omaha. So if we're good neighbors in our neighborhoods, then we help strengthen our city. For May, what we want to do, and I hope I get cooperation from all 7 of them, it's not political, but I want them to find someone in their community, in their city council district, that is a good neighbor. And then recognize them so we can present them with the key to the city and a mayor's coin, challenge coin, just to say thank you for being a good neighbor. But go to our website, look up Year of the Neighbor, and really begin to get engaged with being better person, better family member, better neighbor, and we will have an even greater city. Now, there will always be opportunities to serve on boards and commissions. I would love for you all to email Jennifer in our office and say, these are the types of things I'm interested in, because here's what happens. People say to me, oh, all you do is reappoint the people that are already on the board. And then I say, okay, I've heard you loud and clear. Here's an opening. Give me someone for this particular board. And then they never do. So then I end up reappointing the person that the planning department or public works or whoever wanted to reappoint. I would rather have a database, a list of people who are interested in serving, knowing their gifts, so that we can appoint new people to opportunities instead of just reappointing people. But if I don't have anybody to do that with, what am I going to do? Reappoint the person they want, because we can't leave those vacant. But I think that's the greatest opportunity for people to get involved. There's also the task force groups that we've got a lot of people that are engaged. That's part of inclusivity as well, is listening to as many voices as you can. But we also have We Make Omaha. Don't raise your hand, just think about it. And ask yourself, have you completed the survey?
Yes. Raise your hand. If you
Okay, if you have, raise your hand. Okay. Now, this is probably the highest percentage I've ever seen. And it was less than 50%. Now, here's what I want you all to understand. That is going to replace an almost 30-year-old master plan. And then that is going to be in place for about 20 years. If you want to make your city better, tell us what that looks like. If you don't, here's what's going to happen. And it's the worst part of my job, the thing I never want to do. And that is do the job of mayor to you, where I make decisions without your input. I never want to do the job of mayor to you. I want to be mayor with you. So I always want your input. I won't say the name of the group, but there was a group that actually said they've been sending emails all over the place and they include me in them. But they never said anything to me. So I thought they just wanted me to be aware of the emails they were sending. They said in an email, I believe it was today or late yesterday, oh, the mayor isn't engaged with us. He's not responding to us. Well, they never included me in any request for a response or anything. So I thought they were just making me aware of their concerns. So guess what? They challenged me. I have a meeting with them next Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning, from 10:30 to 11, to hear what they have to say. That is how I'm going to lead this city. But it was an example of people complaining and not talking to me, but just sending information. And I'm like, oh, now you say I'm not responding when you never asked. So, okay. Aaron actually called them today, and we have a meeting set up for next Tuesday. We are always going to be responsive.
Okay, I'm just gonna open up. Does anyone have one or two really quick questions from the floor? I'm gonna come over
Yes.
to you. Ask.
How do you get along with the guy in Lincoln?
The guy in Lincoln?
You can say it a little bit.
The governor.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. So I think you all should understand that I'm a diplomat. I work for you. So I can't take anything he says or does personally, even though there are a lot of things he said that I don't agree with. And there was one word he repeated 3 times that I found extremely offensive. But I have to lead, I have to govern. So I will tell you all this. I was the only elected official when I started working on the incentive bill that was pushing it. I lead, I develop a strategy, I'm very strategic. The governor had to come along. So that's how I work. I set the stage, make sure we're in motion, and then that's what happened with the soccer stadium as well.
Good for you.
I would love to ask you to say a few more words about, you talked a little bit about transit. I'm very invested in transit. I care about it a lot, and I think Omaha needs a lot more of it, a lot more investment in it. So I guess I'm curious if you could say a few words about how your administration is putting a bit more emphasis on prioritizing transit, but also walkability, bikeability,
Sure.
and protecting, pedestrians and, yeah.
Sure. Well, part of it is we always have to remember the roles of each of our entities. I don't have a lot of control over transit. I have developed a relationship with Lauren, who is the executive director of Metro Area Transit. Or Metro Transit, I'm sorry, they took the area out a few years ago. I didn't realize that until I sat down with Aaron on a bus. So I rode a bus for the first time in about 45 years. But what I am trying to do is build that partnership with her. Part of the opportunity we have with the streetcar is that will give us more passengers. More passengers means potentially more federal dollars. And then we will be working in collaboration with Metro Transit so that they can continue to look at creative ways, like the little mini transit options that they just started. And then the other thing I've done with that is they have a board now. And I actually endorsed probably about 4 of their 7 members or whatever when they were running, because most of them were young professionals. And I wanted young professionals in those positions to help us be more creative and more intentional about developing options. So I continue to have conversations with them as well. I'm very supportive of it. We will continue to partner and look at ways to help them be creative as well as the city. The other thing I mentioned was the bike share program. Part of the urban core and the density that we are creating gets to your point of walkability. Right now, Omaha is not a very walkable city at all. I'll give you a funny thought here. If we wanted to build more bus transportation along Maple Street, you know the biggest reason we couldn't today? No sidewalks.
Oh.
There are no sidewalks once you get west of about 102nd Street.
Oh, yeah.
It would take an incredible amount of money to build sidewalks for bus stops. So that's why you don't have bus routes along Maple Street. Look at West Center Road and a lot of those places, it's the same thing. So we're gonna have to figure out how to be creative. And that might be more ride and park and things like that. So people in West Omaha can get on a bus and go places as well. But literally, there are no places to put bus stops. And we've had those discussions. I don't know how many times my predecessors have met with Metro Transit, but I can tell you I've met with them 4 or 5 times in 11 months, which is probably more than anybody else has. So we can look at trying to be creative, but it's an issue. I don't have control, but I have influence.
Well, as public policy director, I could go on with you for hours and ask questions, but I believe that that your wife perhaps might like to go home at some point. So I'm going to thank you very much.